Hello everyone, welcome to our presentation video. In the following video, we would like to show you how we reconcile a cultural conflict in an international business context. To do so, we will start by introducing our role. After that, we will present the differences between the Japanese and American cultures based on two of Tom Penaer's dimensions, and link those to resolve the cultural conflict between two international. Who are we? We are RLHM Consultants, an international consultancy firm. We specialize in intercultural business and culture-related conflicts. With the help of the following video, you will be able to navigate through the difficult world of doing business with other cultures. It can be challenging to understand how others think and why they react the way they do. We want to support your progress of becoming an expert in the international business world and help you achieve successful relationships. We will start by introducing the United States. The United States society is a relatively individualistic culture. In addition to that, people mainly focus on solidarity towards their own family and not towards the rest of society. For example, you can see this in their tax system. Taxes are lower, but citizens have to pay more for additional services themselves, because they are not provided by the government. Therefore, when it comes to doing business, it's all about the overall company and not about personal relationships. Business is business. Personal life is separated from work life. Furthermore, a lot of American culture revolves around the concept of freedom and equality. Equality amongst people is very important, and often the hierarchical structure is not as important when doing business. Americans are present and result-oriented. When doing business, they prove themselves through hard work and achievements rather than just looking at the past, traditions or customs. Contrary, the Japanese culture is different in many aspects. Japanese culture is focused on community. People identify themselves as part of the group. They always think about others and the group first, before thinking of themselves. Japanese people highly value hierarchy and the business environment. People in different positions are treated differently, which also shows in everyday business interaction. In Japan, people appreciate and mostly look for long-term business relationships. In addition to that, they are past-oriented. Customs and traditions are always respected and being taken into consideration before people make decisions or take action. Business etiquette. As you might understand from the before-mentioned cultures, doing business is approached very differently in Japan and the United States. There are several rules of business etiquette which we would like to introduce to you in order for you to have successful business relationships. First of all, we want to go into Japanese business etiquette. It is important to keep in mind that most of these rules are based on the respect Japanese people have for each other. For example, it is important that you wait before sitting down until the host sits down. Do you remember from a previous section that Japanese people value status? It also shows in their eating habits. The seating arrangements when having dinner is normally done by rank, so there is a clear hierarchy which can be seen when one looks at the table. Another rule that should be remembered in terms of hierarchy is that you should wait to get onto an elevator until the people higher up in ranking than you have gone. Also important in the context of elevators is you bow respectfully until the elevator door closes. When receiving a business card, you shouldn't disregard it. You should receive it with both hands, read it carefully, and then put it somewhere in front of you. Now that we learned some important rules about the Japanese, let's move on to the American business customs. It is important to greet people upon arriving. When you introduce another person, make sure to mention their title, but when introducing yourself, do not mention your title. American business people also value it when you dress for business. Furthermore, and this is important for the cases we'll explain later on, American business people put a great deal of value into the written word, such as contracts. In contrast to the Japanese, American business people will see business cards as a source of information. However, they will not treat it with specific rituals or attention. Lastly, we would like to mention that Americans are often very comfortable with taking phone calls throughout business meetings and immediately conduct business deals with business on the spot. For this, they do not necessarily have to know the person they are talking to, which is another sign of the attitude they take towards the business. It is more about the business itself than about the people. To illustrate Japanese business etiquette, we have a video here that shows Japanese business card exchange.
つま先を開いて、左手を上にして、背筋を伸ばし、目線を上げます。日本ではビジネスの場において様々な決まり事があります。それが、ジャパニーズビジネスマナー。まずは名刺の渡し方のマナーです。両手で持ち、右手で渡し、左手で受け取ります。1、2、3。この時に目上の人よりも低い位置で渡すことに注意してください。
Trompenaars dimensions. After looking at the overall culture, we would like to analyze the two cultures based on two cultural dimensions of Trompenaar. The first one is individualism versus communitarianism, and the second one is specific versus diffuse. Individualism versus communitarianism. As we already mentioned, the concept of American culture is around individualism. Individualism means that people see themselves as individuals rather than part of a group. People highly value autonomy and self-development. In contrast, Japanese culture is more about communitarianism, where people identify themselves as part of a group. In this society, group advancement and relationships between group members are valued highly. When it comes to doing business, we suggested to companies to: firstly, both companies should take time to get to know each other and to better understand each other's needs and expectations. Secondly, they should provide clear process and procedures which are needed to be followed before starting with any topics of business. Furthermore, both companies should keep promises and be consistent on what they have agreed on. Besides, we suggest that two companies should think of benefits for both parties first before thinking of themselves. Specific versus diffuse. The United States is more of a specific culture. It means people keep work and life separately. As a result, relationships do not have much impact on work. Although relationships are still important, it is believed that people can work together without building a good relationship. On the other hand, the Japanese have a diffuse culture. In their society, there is an overlap between work and life. The Japanese people believe that having a good relationship is part of the business objective. In addition to that, those good relationships at work stay the same in social meetings. Therefore, we suggest that when the Japanese and American companies do business together, the two companies should show their appreciation on their good relationships and express the hope of strengthening the relationship. And after that, focus on the business objectives following a clear procedure. The case. We want to illustrate these cultural differences by giving the example of a recent case of ours. The Japanese food processing industry, the FPIA, entered into a contract with an American producer of corn. They decided that the Japanese would buy corn from them for the next 10 years. The Americans offered that they would let them do that for a fixed price that would not change. However, shortly after signing the contract, the market price for corn dropped, and the Japanese FPIA ended up paying more for the corn than they would have if they bought it normally. Because of that, the Japanese thought the Americans should reconsider the contract for the sake of their business relationships. The Americans, however, did not see it that way and were of the opinion that a contract is a contract and it should stay in place. Solutions. Based on the case and cultural differences of two countries according to Trompenaars dimensions, we would like to give advice on how two companies can reconcile. For the Americans, we strongly advise them to give priority to benefits for both parties as a way of expressing their appreciation towards this long-term relationship. As the Americans already agreed to provide the Japanese with corn for a competitive price, as per the market price, they should keep their word and stay consistent with what they promised. As it was not stated in the contract that the price would stay the same under all circumstances, we advised the Japanese to carefully discuss with their association on how much they could pay as the maximum price for the corn. After that, the Japanese and Americans must sit down together to discuss the price they both can accept when the market prices suddenly go up or down. With the Japanese culture in mind, we advise the Americans to choose skilled and more experienced elder representatives when doing business. This will impress the Japanese and should thus create an opportunity to demand and/or create respect. They should make sure that the price they offer is a competitive price compared to others, as they already mentioned in the contract. This is to ensure that the relationship allows for future business. With the American culture in mind, we advise the Japanese to say consistently that they respect the contracts and agree to last this 10-year relationship. In addition to that, the FBIA should directly express the prices they expect. However, they must be aware of and accept that when the market fluctuates, the corn prices cannot stay the same, but fluctuate accordingly. Therefore, if the new price is still competitive compared to others on the market, as the Americans promised, it is acceptable. During an actual meeting, since Japan wants to renegotiate the terms of the contract with the Americans, we assume that the meeting will take place in Iowa, United States, the state with the highest corn production in the country. The meeting will take place in the conference room of the ACC, the American Corn Company. As the location is in America, the meeting should generally follow American business customs, with, however, some adjustments that will uphold Japanese honor and respect. Before the meeting, the Japanese Association will have to discuss the maximum price internally. The meeting will start as follows. First, both parties should shake hands and are then introduced according to title and position. For the Japanese, there will be an opportunity to present business cards. These will be read over carefully and then placed upon the table. Secondly, seats will be taken according to rank, drinks will be served, and business can start. The process of business negotiation will go as follows. Negotiations should start with the most important topic, the corn business deal. Both parties should be direct and to the point. They should explain their expectations with the business deal and how they would solve it in a way that will bring mutual benefit to both parties. Equal participation is important, and the only way to show this to your American counterpart is to speak up and ask questions. We strongly advise the Japanese to bring representatives that does speak up. You can see this part of negotiation as haggling. The Japanese should keep in mind that for the Americans, the solution is more important than the winnings and/or earnings, and that when they make an offer, they should leave room for haggling. Through this haggling stage, both parties will share more about their perspective and reasoning. As previously stated, the Japanese should decide upon the maximum price and aim to negotiate to that extent. This is important, as such meetings in and of themselves are not meant to drag on, and that to Americans, time is money, and they do not want to spend it on endless negotiating. Thus, if the Japanese can reach a price that is acceptable to them, negotiations should be concluded. To finalize the deal, a contract will be signed. For this, we advise the Japanese to employ an American attorney to support them during legal matters. On this slide, you can find our sources. Thank you for listening.